Hello everyone and welcome to the second of our build videos. This is not going to be about the frame, but rather about some weapons. This is going to be part of a series I call Pick Apart, where it's going to be alternating with the build videos every Wednesday. We're going to be doing this every Wednesday. We're going to have a build video and then we're going to talk about a few parts in particular and how they relate to your builds and what they're good for. So today's we're going to be focusing on two families of weapons, specifically the Strekoza and the Tansy. Strekoza is also known as the AUC B19 with its little brother the Podenka, the AUC B07, and the Tansy is the I believe it's the AUF A17, something like that. Not sure. No, AUB A17. So AUB A17, and then its little brother over here, the AUB A04, also known as the Calendula. So first, we're going to talk about the Strekoza. Strekoza is basically the king of all battle rifles. It has been since the previous game, but here it's even more so because it got a buff for no real reason, but we got stupid powerful. So the first thing and the most predominant factor of the Strekoza is that it has stupid high CE attack power. Like, this attack power of 2,773 breaks most things in the game that isn't a quad, and even then a lot of quads don't bother to block this out because it's that high. To actually deal with that much CE attack power, you have to specially build for it, and if you do, then you're going to leave yourself vulnerable to other weapons. So the Strekoza is king of all battle rifles for that reason, and pretty much that reason alone. It has decent ammo capacity, a fair reload time, decent optimal range, and muzzle velocity and lock-on times that are workable. The only real downside to the Strekoza is like the muzzle velocity, and even then that's pretty easy to deal with. It's also not the lightest battle rifle, but at the same time most battle rifles are quite heavy, and the only battle rifles that are lighter are specific ones like this Aragon Model 2. So the Strekoza is a very absurdly good weapon stat-wise, and it's not that hard to use. It's just something that's pretty easy to illustrate. If you go up against a tank, or really anything that doesn't have enough defense for this, like tanks and heavy bipedals in particular don't like this thing because it's pretty much impossible for them to deal with it without sacrificing in other areas. So now I'm not even going to bother going to the... No, let's go into the AC test, so I can point out some of the things like the accuracy of it. And we'll go into this one right here. Also, the AC I'm using here is a heavy reverse jointed. It's something called Chimera. Not the best build I've ever made, but it is workable. So, right here, Strekoza, it locked on a little bit slower than, say, the rifle on the left hand, right? But when I got that hit off, I did almost 3,000 damage to this random grunt enemy, right? So this is a build that doesn't run subcomputers, which increase your lock speed. So that's the main reason why the Strekoza is taking forever to lock on. And additionally, this FCS also isn't suitable for battle rifle, so this isn't really the best way to showcase the Strekoza. So I'll probably switch to a different build in a few seconds. Or just eat that. Alright, so right here, this is where I'm really going to get to show off the power of the Strekoza. So these guys, they have big ass shields that reflect regular like rifle bullets. As you can see, that just blinked off for only 300 damage. Right here, Strekoza goes straight through that dude and kills him in 2 hits. Alright, now while ACs aren't going to die in 2 hits, they're sure as hell not going to block any of this damage. And right here, these two guys over here, these guys are supposed to be resistant to CE, I believe. Like, let's find out what their CE defense is. There we go. So their CE defense is 3,000. This is still hitting for effective damage. Okay. But one of them has 3,000 defense, the other one must be lower. But you see how much damage I'm doing here? Do you see how much damage I was doing there? Against something that has like an absurd amount of CE defense? In a way, the Strekoza is similar to the plasma gun that I showed in my previous video, and that it does like stupid amounts of damage for no real rhyme or reason. So let's switch to it. Let's optimize this build a little more for the Strekoza. Let's build a Strekoza build. So Strekozas benefit from high firing stability, so you want to use CE type arms because those have pretty much the highest firing stability ever. So we'll go for these AE 118. Legs, we'll go for a heavy bipedal because those are pretty standard for Strekozas. And head, switch to a CE head. And let's do that. We're getting close to it. Let's see. We're starting to get there. So basically, on a standard Strekoza build, you would go for either a quick lock FCS or a wide angle like this one right here. The only reason for that would be if you want to spam missiles. But if you don't want to spam missiles, which we're not even going to bother with missiles. So we'll go for the generic Strekoza build, where we have perma boost, 2 Strekozas. Where's the other Strekoza? So there's the second Strekoza, subcomputers, and this laser rifle and shield in the shoulders are fine. So now that we've actually optimized this build to use Strekozas properly, we can show you what they can actually do. Because, you know, that previous test was kind of silly. But we'll go against the tank. I mentioned previously that this tank is rather weak to CE. It is, but it also has a lot of health. So here you're going to get to see exactly how quickly we can kill it, just by kind of spamming Strekozas at it. Also, this is a heavy bipedal. It's not the fastest thing, but it has really good defense and good turning. So now, admittedly, I might die before this thing does, but the fact that I'm matching a tank's DPS with 2 rifles is kind of silly. And right here, all I'm doing is just floating back and forth. Like, normally you would be trying a little bit harder to avoid getting shot in the face. So there. So 2 Strekozas killed a tank before it could kill me. Now mind you, this isn't the best tank, but I was kind of letting it hit me a lot more than you should. And, you know, the damage on the Strekozas is nothing to laugh at. Because, like for example, right here, even on this heavy bipedal build that I have, let's try to block out Strekozas. Let's go for the most CE defense we can possibly get and try to block out Strekozas. So right there, we're already blocking out Strekozas, right? Except that our KE defense is at 1200. 1200 KE defense is nothing. Now, if I were to try and get some KE defense back, like say with the arms, then I would go for these. Then I got some KE defense, but oh, we're not blocking the Strekozas anymore. And it's like, okay, well, what if I change the legs? So maybe I can get some legs with better CE defense, like these Lilith legs right here, right? These have good CE defense, but oh no, the KE goes back low again. Now, what if we were trying to raise the KE instead? Right, so there, now we've got decent KE, but the CE dropped again. So let's try different arms. Let's try the high defense CE arms. It's like, oh no, the KE is low again. So the problem with Strekoza is basically that you're never going to be able to defend against both Strekoza and whatever KE is, or whatever you're weak to in KE. And so Strekoza is really dangerous for that reason and that reason alone. And because its damage is so high, some people actually will run a build where they use 2 power and 1 accuracy instead of 3 power to get a little bit more accuracy out of it, but honestly I don't think that's worth doing. Because you get a little bit more muzzle velocity and you lose 300 damage per shot. Which means that if someone has high defenses, then you're going to be a lot less likely to take advantage of that raw Strekoza power. The main advantage is the increased lock-on, the increase in the lock-on time, which makes it so that it locks faster. But now I'll be able to talk about like the Strekoza's little brother, the Podenka, which I think will suit that role better if you want better lock-on speeds. So the Podenka, it has slightly less damage, it has a better reload speed, and it also has a better lock-on time. Now the reload speed doesn't look like a big difference, but it is significant. It's significant enough that the Podenka actually has better DPS than the Strekoza, as long as you're hitting both things as long as they don't have enough defense to block out the Podenka. So the Podenka does get blocked slightly more often than the Strekoza does, but it also is significantly stronger in terms of just damage races. It also goes through its ammo faster and it's less accurate, but well, it's a good weapon. Alright, so we're gonna do the same setup: Strekozas, subcomputers, and these arms and all this stuff to go fight the tank with. And here I'm basically just trying to prove that Strekoza is a scary weapon and Podenka is a scary weapon, but Podenka is a slightly scarier weapon if you don't have the means to deal with it, because it just does more damage over time.
System. Combat mode activated.
So we're gonna go run up to this tank again.
System scan mode. System
Alright.
combat mode.
So Podenka locks significantly faster and also fires significantly faster. But you also have to be closer to hit with it. So in order to really make use of these, you kind of have to get in someone's face, which is what heavy bipeds are pretty good at. Quads can do this too, to a degree, but heavy bipeds do it slightly better because they're a little bit more mobile. So if you're paying attention, you probably noticed that the tank died significantly faster that time. It's also playing a little bit better, but that tank died much faster with Podenkas than it did with Strekozas. And now mind you, the difference isn't going to be quite that huge normally, because most tanks have some defense as opposed to that one. But the Podenkas do significantly faster damage than the Strekozas do. So they're very good weapons. They're Strekoza and Podenka are both really good weapons. Strekoza is more if you want like a mid-range firefight where you just want reliable stupid damage. Podenka is if you want close range stupid damage and you want to get in someone's face. So they have different purposes. A build that they both work on heavy bipedal builds, they both work on medium bipedal builds, and they both work on like quads. Although quads not quite as much as the bipedal builds. So here we'll make an example medium bipedal build, just to showcase, you know, what you can do with Podenkas. And we'll take off. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Take off these, and we'll build for speed on this. We'll say this is like an aggressive, lightweight build. Now we'll go for high firing stability. Alright, and then we'll go for more speed with the boosters. Alright, and then recon, I'll change that real quick. Alright, so now we've got a pretty basic, fast, aggressive, do all the damage, medium weight build. And we can throw on some more weapons on the back, like, I don't know, like pulse guns. Pulse guns are pretty good at doing damage. So we'll put on this pulse gun. And what else is good? We can put on a pulse machine gun if you want to catch those lightweights, right? So now we're going to take the same build back against the same tank, and we're going to see how a medium bipedal handles these Podenka rifles. And I believe the medium bipedal is probably a slightly better choice if you want to have a little bit more fun with it. Because heavy bipedals are like good as hell stat-wise, but they're also kind of boring to play sometimes. Because you just win all the time. So right here, obviously I'm not quite as energy efficient because I'm not running the infinite boost build. So here you have to play a lot more carefully as a medium bipedal, alright, because you don't have the defense of a heavy bipedal. But you can also get a lot more speed in, so if someone's trying to run away from you, then you're a lot more likely to catch them. Additionally, you can also do stuff like this where you can get behind people rather easily. So this is what I feel is a lot more fun, but it's also not quite as You eat that last one.
System scan mode.
But it's not going to be quite as effective as just, you know, bringing a heavy bipedal and running at someone's face. But medium bipedals can make Podenka and Strekoza work too. They just have to be a little more careful with it. Now we're going to talk about the Tansy, since I spent a little while talking about the Podenka and the Strekoza already. So we're going to go back in, and now we're going to switch to regular rifles in the Tansy and another Tansy, because, you know, most people like a lot of people like symmetry. Although the Tansy is one of the weapons that you can very easily run only one of them, and you'll get a pretty good amount of usefulness out of it. So if you look at the stats on the Tansy, it has really high KE attack power. It has a moderate to slowish reload. It has decent walk-on time. It has really high muzzle velocity and decent range. Now, if you compare that to, say, like this Jessup over here, this RFA 222, this is a really popular rifle. So again, it has above average attack power, above average muzzle velocity, but it's kind of slow. So the Tansy is notable in that, in combination with the Strekoza, there's pretty much nothing in the game that can block it outside of a few types of quads. And quads don't usually bother because, you know, they just bring KE shields. So the Tansy is cool in that you can break through pretty much any defense with it, but the Tansy is unlike the Strekoza in that you're not going to like out-damage tanks with it. Tansy is very slow and it's very long range. So if you want to play like a super safe playstyle where you just kind of float around really far away and harass people from far away, then the Tansy is good for that. But at that range, a lot of people would argue that you're better off just using a sniper rifle, and I would agree. Tansy is a good weapon, but it's outclassed by sniper rifles, and I don't think it does enough to be worth using, really. It got a buff when a lot of people complain about it because it got buffed, but it's still not really that dangerous, even though its stats on paper look very good. Now, if you were to compare that to the Calendula, it has slightly less damage, but it's also faster and maintains most of that accuracy. So that's where the Calendula comes in as being kind of the better weapon overall. Because it's not going to be as accurate, and it's also not going to do quite as much damage per hit, but it's also going to do a reasonable amount. It also has a reasonable fire rate, so you can actually do something with that damage instead of just kind of watching as people run at you and kill you in the face. Precisely in the face, not anywhere else. So Calendula, I think, is the better choice of the two rifles. The Tansy is a decent rifle, but it is overshadowed by its low DPS and poor handling. Like, it has really high weight and really high energy consumption for a rifle, and for example, for 638 weight and 902 energy consumption, we can compare that to a sniper rifle, one of the most popular sniper rifles. The most popular sniper rifle in the game. It has less weight, less energy consumption, almost half the energy consumption, and it does about, you know, I don't know, like 5/3 of the damage. It does a lot of damage. It does a lot of damage per hit, and it also has a lot more range and a lot more muzzle velocity. So even though it's even slower than the Tansy, it's better for that, oh, I need to stay away and I need to poke you game. Because it has like double the muzzle velocity and it does more damage, so it's going to pierce all armor. Like, there's nothing in the game that's going to resist this thing except for like a specialized shield. Right? Whereas Tansies, if you try, you can build up enough KE defense to block them. And the main reason why the Tansies, the other reason why Tansies are bad, or why I believe that they're not really worth using, is that there's this missile over here. Where is it? There we go. So this missile right here, KMB 118H, it only does 1496 attack power, but it also has really high impact force. Impact force of 1412 up here, as you can see once I get to it. There you go. So impact force of 1412. That impact force of 1412 basically means that these missiles are going to hit in a volley. So one missile is going to hit someone, and then the 3 or 4 missiles that are going to come after that are going to do more damage. And so the damage that these things do after that first hit stuns the target is about 1870, which, if you pay attention, is higher than the Tansy's 1823. So most people are scared of those missiles, so they block out the Tansy anyway by default. So the Tansy's high damage becomes kind of a moot point, which kind of sucks for all intents and purposes. But yeah, it's there. Now we'll use these Tansies and we'll go fight the quad. And now Tansies, I believe, are going to function much better on the medium bipedal than on the heavy bipedal. Or not Tansies, Calendulas. So the calendulas are going to function much better on the medium bipedal than a heavy bipedal because they're going to take better advantage of the speed because you're making range. And back once again. Small interruption, but an important one. So here we're gonna fight this quad. We're gonna shove its face in with rifle bullets. This quad in particular is quite weak to rifles, but it's pretty indicative of how calendula works against most quads, or against most light bipedals. Because most of the time they don't bother to block it. So right here we're getting a pretty decent fire rate because we've got that maximum firing stability, and we're also getting decent lock speed because we've got a subcomputer. But the lock time on these calendulas isn't too bad even without the subcomputer, so you can still use these without a subcomputer, which is pretty nice. Strekozas without subcomputers is kind of bad, even with a very high lock on speed, like a Glance FCS. So right there. So the Tansy is not the greatest weapon, but it has decent DPS and it hits really hard. So it's a pretty usable weapon if you want to go with dual rifles. Although the Jessup is kind of the king of dual rifles in that regard. But it works. Calendula, like I said, it works fine on the medium bipedal. If you want to go with a defensive medium bipedal to play at range, then you could do that. So for example, if we were to go with something like this and try to build up our CE defense, and we'll swap out to like part better defenses. So this is like a bulky medium bipedal, right? We've got really high CE defense, really high KE defense. We'll switch the core out for a CE core. Excuse me. So there. Maybe a little bit more KE. Can we get more KE? Let's try for more KE. So there we go. So we just built like a super bulky medium bipedal that can move at good speeds and is going to take full advantage of those rifles. And on the back end, we'll put like, instead of a pulse machine gun, we'll put a laser rifle because those pair well with regular rifles. We'll put, I don't know which one. We could go with that one. We'll go with the Wakakusa models. They're very lightweight. We'll go with that. Then we'll get a longer range FCS. And what else? What else can we put on here? We'll put some missiles on because missiles pair really well with rifles, especially with that FCS. And then we'll put on high-speed missiles work pretty well at the range that these things fight at. I'll take off one of these Wakakusas for a shield. Or maybe I'll just switch the Wakakusa for something else. Like a Now we'll go back to the pulse machine gun. Pulse machine guns are pretty good at most ranges. Still doesn't fit. Huh. This is the other problem with building a medium bipedal that's super armored, is that you run into weight issues. So we might have to use a different booster here. We'll use this one since it'll help us keep spacing. And then that should work. Alright. So now we've got our experimental rifle build built on a medium bipedal leg. And so this is to prove that you can build like a very safe, very defensive long-range fighter that kind of works. Now we'll fight the tank again because the tank has a lot of issues with range management. So if we can stay out of the tank's range, then well, we can kill it without really any issues.
System. Combat mode activated. System scan mode.
So since we took off our subcomputers and we switched to an FCS with really poor lock times,
System.
we're not going to get nearly the speed of lock on here. But since we're fighting at long range, that's not a big deal anyway. So right here, so all we gotta do is stay back and keep just keep pumping it full of lead. Right? This is kind of boring in my opinion, but it works, and it's definitely a way if you want to like play like a supporting role. Now there, he's actually shooting down a lot of those missiles, which is kind of interesting. But he didn't really stand a chance at range because he just couldn't touch us. A lot of tanks have similar issues, so if you stay out of their range and you get good at backing off, especially if you have good defenses, then they're gonna have a hard time killing you. Although a lot of tanks are specially designed to kind of get in your face and destroy you before you have a chance to react. Now we're gonna test it against this like light bipedal, which is gonna show off a little bit more of like actual combat, because the tank was kind of an unfair fight. So if he gets too close and my rifles start to become useless, then I can switch to the pulse machine gun here. So here we're gonna stay back again. And again, he can get his shots in, but he's not really able to do much with them because we have good defenses and we're fighting at range, so his weapons aren't very accurate. And again, we're still getting a decent fire rate and good damage. So if you want to do dual rifles super safe, that's a way to do it. If you want to go super crazy, go full Super Saiyan, you grab some battle rifles, you grab some shotguns, you get into people's faces. So then, hope you enjoyed this build about about build theory and my own personal build philosophy. And I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the factors that go into picking weapons. The Strekoza and the Calendula family are both two very powerful sets of weapons, but they're not very powerful unless you use them properly. So that's why I decided to go with them. Strekoza is actually pretty powerful even if you don't know what you're doing with it, but like you're gonna have a hard time hitting people if they know how to dodge it. So then, hope you had fun. Continue to play Armored Core, blow the fuck out of everything, and if you're interested, check out Armored Core Universe. They're kind of crazy, but they're cool people. They also know Armored Core. It's a great thing to know. Armored Core is kind of hard to learn. So then, see ya.